Hey guys, it's Icarus here,
And Amelia.
and I'm here to tell you if you'd like to join our brand new adventure. Go to DevonTaylorAuthor.com to learn more.
And check out the cool items like the new bucket hat.
Yeah, and so much more. See you guys there.
Welcome to a brand new experience with innovative voices from all over the world. I would like to invite you all to something that is magical, something that is powerful, and something that is from my heart. This is the Devon Taylor Podcast. Hello all and welcome to another episode of the Devon Taylor Podcast. Today's podcast, we are here with a amazing human being. We get to meet an author, a social worker, a psychologist, a mother, someone who has been through a lot, but has transformed her experience into something that I think is remarkable and something I think everyone needs to hear. So today we welcome Diana Ward. Hello.
Thank you. Hi, so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I really appreciate your story and I really appreciate you as a human being. We haven't had the opportunity of meeting in person, but something about you just called me to you and I just happened to jump on one live. And since then, we've been able to kind of connect.
I know. Well, likewise, I was connected to you too for, I don't know, whatever reason, the universe, but I was drawn to you too. So I'm so glad we got to virtually meet.
Thank you. Yeah. So just so that everyone can kind of get to know you, I've read your story. I've read kind of like your background, but I kind of wanted you to kind of give everyone an introduction of who you are, where you come from, and what's your mission.
Okay, sure. So I'm actually, well, I was born in San Diego, California, but moved to Vegas with my family when I was 16. So half of me, I say I'm from San Diego, and the other half I'm like, well, I'm from Vegas. But I spent majority of my adult life in Las Vegas, Nevada. Really, I started in the property management real estate background, and then the market crashed. And then I had to like redefine myself and my career path and all that. And that was with a recent divorce and three little kids. And I was like, oh my gosh, lost my house, my car, my 401k, just lost everything as far as materialistic things go. So that led me down a new path. I relocated to southern Utah and I decided to go to school. So at age 37, with three little kids, I went back to school, but that's where I found my passion for psychology. And so I got a bachelor's in psychology from Southern Utah University, then moved back to Vegas, finished a master's degree in health psychology. And then immediately after getting my master's degree, I went straight into an inpatient psychiatric setting. So, I mean, of course, leave it to me to just dive all into like the worst case scenario of dealing with, acute crises really in mental health. But that is totally where I was meant to be. And I absolutely love psychology. And so I was like my title there was a social worker, even though I'm not licensed and I did social work, but that's not what my my degrees are in. But it's basically what you do when you're in an inpatient setting. But yeah, so I kind of went into that field, and then about 3 years ago, I moved out to Florida. And then, I love it out here. I absolutely love it because I'm a beach girl at heart, coming from San Diego. But yeah, so I'm out here living with my two sisters and two daughters.
I love it. Yeah. And just the story of you going back to school, like what was the hardest part about like having to go back and kind of like rediscover yourself in a sense?
Right. You know what? Of course, when I was going through it, it was very much obviously a challenge trying to juggle being a single mom, trying really you have to when you go to college. I remember an ex-boyfriend of mine. He's a brilliant man. He's a chiropractor and physical therapist, and he has like a million PhDs. But anyways, he says you have to learn how to learn. And that is so true. And that's what I did. And when I did that, right now, like even right now, as we're talking, I'm like, I want to go back to school because I love learning new things. And so that probably was the hardest is learning how to learn. But of course, juggling, I had to work still too. I mean, being a single mom, I had to, put a roof over our head. So I had to work, go to school, and then of course 3 young kids. So it was a huge challenge. But while I was going through it, it was hard and there's a lot of tears and frustration. But I look back now and I just know that that was the path that I was supposed to be on,
Mm.
100%. And I don't regret it one bit, and I'm so happy I did it. I mean, it's just like I said, I want to continue on. I started my PhD right before my son passed away, and so that's been kind of put on, a back shelf. But I'm going to go back for sure.
Yeah. And I love, to be quite honest, everyone that has been listening to this podcast knows my story of me adopting my nieces and nephews and becoming a parent all of a sudden. And power to all of the mothers out there. Like, I cannot believe the amount of power you guys have to have in order to just raise children. So kudos to
Oh,
you. But
thank
is
you.
there any advice that you can give to parents that are, maybe struggling to do it on their own? Because I know for me, it was really hard at the beginning.
I'll speak for myself. What helped me, I'm a very structured person and
Mm.
I'm a very ritualistic person, and I think that's what kids need and crave. So for me, I had a routine and boy, I had to stick to it. And so that meant getting up at the exact same time, getting them up at the exact same time, getting, their clothes out the night before, all these little things that will make your life easier as well as theirs. And then,
Mhm.
looking back now, because my children are grown, and it's easier said than done. I totally get this, but trying your hardest to be present and appreciating that you can never, and this goes for anything in life, get any moment back ever.
Mm.
So, I look back now and of course I was very stressed and I had my chaotic moments, but especially now losing my son, I wish I would have been more present and really
Mm.
appreciated those little moments in time, and trying to not rush through them. Or, of course you're going to get frustrated, but just try to take a breath and again, appreciate the moments that you do have.
Absolutely. I love that. And so just to kind of like piggyback on what you're saying with your son, you wrote a book and so inspirational. You have no idea. It's touched my heart and I'm sure touched a lot of people's hearts that have been able to read it. But the inspiration behind that, the book, can you talk a little bit about that and how that came to be?
Sure. So, my son, was, from the day he was born, struggled. Of course, I didn't know at the time when he was born. Even when he was a little baby, I was like, something's not right. So, just that mother's instinct. He was a very fussy baby, screamed a lot, was very sensitive to his environment, and so again I knew something was wrong. Eventually I got the help after a very long time. I was very much dismissed by family members, doctors, just people in general. And so of course I thought, okay, maybe it's me, maybe I'm not that great of a mother or something, um, but come to find out he was on the spectrum. And back then, this is like 20 something years ago, it was just like Asperger's. I'm sure a lot of people have heard that term. They don't use that anymore, but so he's on the spectrum. And then, so it was always very challenging. He was, again, a very angry child, would lash out, would have complete meltdowns. You know, just every day was very much a struggle, for him and me and the family. But then later on, as he got older into his teenage years, he also started to get into drug and alcohol use. And of course, looking back, it was he was self-medicating himself. I mean, he was not never comfortable in his own skin, really. Um, so the drug, addiction and all that, kind of went on, and then he got diagnosed bipolar. So, the thing I always say, especially being in the mental health field, we always say, what came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know. Was he bipolar, all along, or did the drugs and alcohol kind of induce this type of
Mm.
disorder? I don't know. But anyways, not that it matters. But so he had his first psychotic episode about age 20, which he went into full blown, delusions, hallucinations. He had delusions that he was teleporting through doors and the aliens were chasing him. And, this went on for days. And, again, me working in a psychiatric hospital at the time, I was like calling the doctor that I know and just saying, can you help me? We need to get him in the hospital, and thankfully, and I feel like everything's divinely guided and the universe sets this all up. But I feel like that's why I went into the mental health field, because I knew how to deal with it. I knew what to look for. I knew what it was right away. And so we finally did get him to the hospital and got him, a little bit stable. And, he was doing okay. But then along came a girlfriend. Um, don't they always ruin it? But she, of course, she was kind of into the rave scene, the partying scene, so he went back down the road of using drugs, drinking, partying, and got off his meds. And so, of course, I kicked him out because part of my agreement was you can come stay with me, but no drugs, no alcohol. You need to stay on your meds. You need to do everything, that would keep you stable. And of
Right.
course, that didn't happen. So I kicked him out. And then, shortly thereafter, he did have another psychotic episode. And again, I didn't get him hospitalized that time. I guess somebody called the police on him. He was roaming down the streets of Las Vegas without like one shoe on and obviously, delusional. And so they hospitalized him again. And then kind of a repeat, brought him back home, laid down the ground rules. Um, he seemed a little bit okay for a while, and then he did move out on his own again. And then that's when I moved here. And being on the spectrum and being mentally ill and using drugs and alcohol, he was constantly inappropriate. Like this was a lifelong thing because, especially being on the spectrum, they don't really have a filter.
Yeah.
So he would say and do things that, I mean, just cringeworthy. And of course we kind of got used to it, but when I first moved here, he said something kind of inappropriate to one of his sisters. And, on and off, all of us we got to the point where he was mean, verbally abusive. And at times it was just like, it was really hard to be around him at times. And same with just even being in contact with him. So a lot of us, like me and my sisters and daughters, we would just kind of disconnect a little bit, not talk to him for a while because it really is exhausting. We love him, but sometimes it's like you got to kind of self-preserve. So
Right.
right when I first moved out here, I kind of said, I can't deal with this anymore. And I kind of distanced myself. All of us did, and didn't talk to him for a couple months. And then one day I was at work out here in Florida at the psychiatric hospital, and I noticed a call from him. And I hadn't talked to him in a couple months. And I knew right before that, I got this sick feeling in my gut and I was crying at work. And I really can't explain it. I was looking at old pictures of him and I was just crying. I was just worried sick about him, of course, because I hadn't been in contact with him. Quite honestly, sometimes we were even like, is he even alive? The path that he took doing the drugs and everything. I mean, it was actually, I expected a call that he overdosed. But so I got this call while at work one day and I was like, whoa, so I was like, do I answer it? Because of course the history with him is like, you're going to answer it and what is going to be on the other line, psychotic
Right.
episode, verbal abuse, but I answered it. And it was a brief conversation, but he was just like, hi mom, how you doing? I'm like, I'm okay. He's like, you like it out there? And I was like, yeah, I really do. And I was like, how are you? And then he proceeded to tell me that, well, there's people.
Today's episode comes to you thanks to our sponsor, Kangen Water. Electrolytes reduced water is the power of true hydration, manifested in the most advanced Japanese technology that has been in the market for more than 50 years. To drink the best water, shower with a hot spring quality water, and start a new business with the most amazing and profitable compensation plan in the world, visit thelivingwatercouple.com to learn more or get started today.
Placing microscopic drugs at my house and in my workplace. And so, of course, I'm thinking this is a paranoid delusion, but I was just, kind of going along with it. And I was like, well, you need to call the police and get some help or whatever. And anyways, and he was kind of crying and, I said, well, I'm at work, I'm so sorry I can't really stay on, but I love and miss you, son. And so we hung up. Later that night, he called me and I had turned my volume off because I went to bed because, of course, he's in Vegas, so that's a 3-hour time difference. And so I woke up the next morning and I was just like, oh, I'm so sorry I missed your call. I love you. Give me a call back if you'd like. Didn't hear anything, didn't hear anything. A couple days go by. I tried to call, text, nothing. And a couple days later that Saturday, I got a missed call from like a private blocked number. And I was like, oh, who's this? I don't ever answer those kind of calls.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know who you are. But he left a voicemail and it was a police officer in Las Vegas saying they found his car in the mountains, but they can't find him. And so I was like, well, I know my son loved going to the mountains. I mean, he would go up there and meditate or hike or just hang out because, believe it or not, Las Vegas has really pretty mountains. It's not all desert, but anyway, so I was just like, oh, great. He was probably up there doing drugs, and again, my mind goes to an overdose. But so a few hours go by, and of course, I'm in a panic. I'm in Florida, he's in Vegas, and I'm calling the police back, and nobody's answering. And then a few hours later, in the middle of the night, that night, like midnight, 1 a.m., I can't remember, got a call from a coroner saying they found his body up there. So, of course, at that point, I didn't know, was it an overdose or what? So, of course, me, my daughters, my sister got on the plane back to Vegas. And that's when we got his car. We found in his car a bin full of items. And he had written on the top of the bin, please give all these items to his ex-girlfriend at the time, but they had just broken up. And I'm like, what? This is weird. So we're going through the items and there's a whole bunch of cell phones in there because during his paranoia, he thinks they're bugged or something. So he goes and buys a whole bunch more. So we're going through all these phones and they're unlocked. So he did that on purpose. And we're looking through the texts and the videos and whatnot. And we found a video of him videoing himself, placing these items in the bin and basically saying goodbye and saying, I'm being called to go to the other side to help guide this girlfriend. So that was kind of a delusion, really. He really thought he was supposed to go to the other side. And so, yeah, come to find out, it was a suicide. He had taken Tylenol PM and Benadryl and then had done amphetamines, which was interesting because that wasn't his normal drug of choice. His drug of choice was like ketamine. And so I'm wondering if it was a bad batch or something because we did find a text talking about that to somebody. So anyways, nonetheless, in the toxicology report, it was amphetamines, Benadryl, and Tylenol PM overdose. So then, we were out there and we were all in a hotel, just trying to get everything squared away. And we did his cremation and all that. And it just came to me in the hotel room, you need to write a book about him and your journey raising him and hopefully help others because so many people, deal with mental health, addiction, and then suicidal thoughts or actual suicide. And especially like from a mother's point of view, I think there's a lot of mothers out there, especially even him being on the spectrum. I mean, my poor boy, he just, I mean, I don't think anybody can even understand how challenging his life was. Yeah. And he lived to be 22. And I say that, I mean, even that was 22 years of a battle. And so quite honestly, I don't even know that any of us could have gone that long in such a battle that he was in. But yeah, so I just wanted to share my journey and maybe even help other mothers that have even a baby like him, because at the time I know I was struggling and I'm like, am I doing something wrong? Am I not a good mother? And, I had all these self-doubts. But so yeah, that's why I wrote the book. So it's basically my perspective on raising him and going through the journey of losing him and the mental health system that's so broken and all that. And even with my background and knowledge, I couldn't even save him.
Wow, so powerful. I'm honestly getting emotional right now because it's making me think. Before we got on, we were talking about just the connections in our lives, and I lost my brother at the same age. He was 22. He died in a car accident. And I know just the change that my mom had was so drastic um, it changed all of our lives, but the way that you have been able to cultivate this and bring awareness, and not only awareness, but try to help others. What is some advice that you could probably give to mothers that may be going through this or may have lost a child? Because I think this is just so remarkable to be able to take your story and turn it into a book.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I would say to the mothers that have a child, similar to Cody, or if you've already lost a child, um, that I mean, at some point I had to know that I did everything I could, and that at some point I had to let go. Um, you know, I don't blame myself. And I'm not saying I'm a perfect mother by any means. I mean, nobody's perfect. I'm not saying that I wouldn't have done things maybe a little bit different at times, but overall, I know I loved him super hard, super hard. And I tried everything I could think of. But at some point, you really have to let go and know that when they make that choice, it had really nothing to do with you. And especially him being an adult, I really couldn't. I mean, I could call the police all day long and say, please go, put him under a legal hold. And they're like, ma'am, we can't do that,
Right.
So, I think in your heart, if you really, really just love them as much as you can, but realize that really that decision, it really has nothing to do with you.
Right. No, absolutely. Since you've written the book, what kind of reactions have you received? Like, have people been sending love? Have you, gotten any messages from people that may have had the same experience?
Yeah, so many people, which I kind of knew, but I don't think I realized the impact it was going to have. So I did a talk and a book signing last night at it's called Mental Health Ministry. And then afterwards, just everybody coming up crying, saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm going through something similar," or so and so, a friend, a family member did go through that, or I lost my son to suicide, or whatever. And I'm like, that's why I wrote this, because the main feedback I get, which just gives me the chills right now, is they feel like they're not alone. And
Hmm.
that's exactly why I wanted to do it, because you're really not alone. And so anybody that's going through something like this or having suicidal thoughts, know that you really aren't alone. Even, hey, I'm on, with you virtually. So if anybody ever wants to reach out to me and just do a virtual call or something, that you really aren't ever alone. There's always
Hmm.
someone that can at least even just listen to you and validate. It is hard, but don't give up. I actually have um, can you see it? Oh gosh, the semicolon tattooed, which means don't let your story end here. Just take a pause, take a break,
Hmm.
and then don't let your story end and keep going. Don't give up. So.
I love that. So inspirational. And you actually answered my next question, which was what was your inspiration and motivation about writing about the loss of your son, which I just love that it's all about connection. I feel like we're all trying to connect. We're all trying to figure out how we can relate in our similarities. So I love that you have kind of found your purpose through this and been able to relate to people on such a
Exactly.
massive level. And so even with that being said, you did a speech in Naples. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was interesting. So my publisher, which is also your publisher, phenomenal team, just very
Mhm.
compassionate, and their publishing company really just is all about, getting behind people sharing their stories that really can impact the world. So I'm so grateful. O'Leary Publishing, shout out. But anyway, so they held, it was called Book to Naples. It's basically all the authors get up and kind of tell a little bit about themselves, tell their story. And so it was interesting because, first of all, I'm in the mental health field and I am on the other side trying to help people that go through things, and I'm pushing them past their limits to, talk about it and come out of their shell and become vulnerable, right? Well, let me tell you, I don't really like that. I don't like doing it. It's not comfortable. I don't think
Right.
anybody can say being vulnerable is comfortable. Writing my book, obviously you read it and it's a very vulnerable story. I mean, there's points in it that again they're cringy, they're not pretty, but but writing a book, someone takes that book and reads it in private. I'm not having to tell you face to face all these,
Right.
things. But so getting on that stage, she wanted me to talk about more about myself, like not even the book per se. And so she's like, yeah, I want you to get vulnerable and talk about maybe something that you went through in your life. And so it was very uncomfortable. I talked about like my divorce and kind of how I really never had a voice. Really growing up as a young girl, I think, I'm 51, and back when I was a little girl, you just, little girls just be quiet, just say yes all the time and be accommodating. And so I talked about that, and then I get married, and I really didn't have a voice. I didn't know who I was, what I wanted, what I liked, what I didn't like. It was just like, oh, okay, I just did whatever my husband wanted at the time, changed pretty much everything about myself, became Mormon, all this stuff. And again, it was just because I didn't know myself and who I was and didn't have a voice to say, no, that's not who I am. But anyway, so after getting divorced, I found who I was and found my voice. And, so I talked about that. And again, it was just really uncomfortable, but super empowering. And getting on that stage, which again doesn't come natural for me. I was very nervous, but I look back now and I'm like, wow, I surprised myself actually. So it was very
Mm.
empowering.
I love that. Yeah, and to be quite honest, I'm surrounded by powerful women. A lot of the women that have been on the podcast are just speaking of, how they came to be who they are today, and just you fit in so well with that. Just being able to embrace yourself after, the divorce and having to find yourself again. And I just love your story. I think it's so powerful, and I know people are going to be inspired when they hear, what you've been through and what you're doing now. So, last question I really have is, if anyone were to read your book, what's one thing that you want them to walk away
Oh, I know that answer.
with?
Well, I would say have more compassion for those that or may be struggling with some form of mental illness or addiction. Um, don't, first off, don't think that there's any right thing to say, but just being there physically with them and listening to them, and don't be so quick to judge because you really don't know their story. And obviously, the name of my book is so appropriate because Behind the Smile is the name of it. And truly, even for me, I will say, there's days that I'm, struggling mentally, or even just in my grief. And, we all have to put on that smile and go to work and go about our day. And you don't know what somebody's going through. So just be kind. And that's kind of my little motto that I write in my book when I sign them is be kind always because you never know what's behind the smile.
I love that. Awesome. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you being here
Yeah.
and being so open to telling your story. So where can everyone find you? Where can they get your book? Let them know. Where can we become a fan?
Okay, so I have a website, DianaWardAuthor.com, and there you'll find the link to Amazon. So you can either go straight to Amazon, which is totally fine. The key though on Amazon is type in Behind the Smile Diana Ward, because otherwise there are other Behind the Smiles out there, but they're different subtitles. So my subtitle's kind of long, so just you can leave that out. But the subtitle is The Heartbreaking Journey of Raising a Son with Mental Illness and Addiction. So, but again, Behind the Smile, Diana Ward should get you to it on Amazon. You can follow me. I'm all over on Facebook, Instagram. Again, Diana Ward Author, or like my handles. And let's see, I think that's it. I do have a YouTube channel, which I really haven't spent a lot of time on, but I think I'm going to start that back up because I want to do like mental health minutes and just give everybody little coping skills and stuff. So I kind of let that one go, but I'm going to get back into that.
Oh, yes, and I'll be on the lookout for that because I definitely, like I said, I resonate with your story. I feel like you're such a powerhouse when it comes to just women that are paving the way and creating opportunities for others to just better their lives, and it's coming at a time where I feel like everyone needs it. I don't I don't know what everyone is going through, but I can feel in the collective consciousness, this story is going to resonate. So once
Yes.
again, I
Thank
appreciate you
you.
so very much.
Oh,
Thank
I
you for being
appreciate
here.
you. Thanks for having me. I'm so grateful.
Of course, anytime. And once again, thank you. Hopefully you
You're welcome.
guys can follow Diana, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you.
This is Diana Ward, author of Behind the Smile. Please read my book that is my journey raising my son with mental illness, addiction, and unfortunately losing him to suicide. My hopes are to raise awareness, break the stigma, and prevent one more suicide.
This is Nimram speaking to you, and I command you to go to DevonTaylorAuthor.com right now. You must check the specials. Listen to me. You must check the specials now.